Jamal Williams, a 17-year-old high school senior, was walking home from basketball practice one Friday evening when he heard a screech of tires and the deafening crash of metal. His heart raced as he looked down the street and saw a police car smashed into a lamppost, its sirens still wailing. Without thinking twice, Jamal sprinted toward the wreck, his sneakers pounding the pavement. As he got closer, he could see the officer slumped over the steering wheel, blood trickling from his forehead. "Hey, you okay?" Jamal shouted, but the officer didn't respond. Jamal rushed to the driver's side window, tugging at the door handle, but it was jammed. Glancing around, he spotted a piece of metal debris nearby, and with a grunt, he pried the door open. The officer groaned, his eyelids fluttering as he came to. "Stay with me," Jamal said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He carefully helped the officer, who wore a name tag reading Officer Matthews, out of the car and leaned him against the curb. Sirens echoed in the distance, and within minutes, backup and an ambulance arrived. Jamal stepped back, relieved that help was finally there. He watched as paramedics lifted the injured officer onto a stretcher, answering questions from another officer who just arrived. "Hey, what happened here?" the second officer, a stocky man with a badge reading Sullivan, asked Jamal, his gaze sharp. "I saw the crash and pulled him out of the car," Jamal explained. He felt a strange tension building in the air as Sullivan's eyes narrowed at him, flicking between Jamal's face and the cop car. "You pulled him out? Why would you do that?" Sullivan asked, his tone accusatory. Jamal blinked, confused by the question. He was hurt. "I just wanted to help." Sullivan's hand moved to the radio on his shoulder. "Dispatch, I need more units here." "We've got a suspect on the scene," he said calmly, his eyes still locked on Jamal. "Suspect?" Jamal's stomach dropped. "I didn't do anything. I just helped him." Sullivan ignored him, motioning for Jamal to stay where he was. Soon, 2 more police cars arrived, and Jamal felt a sinking dread as several officers approached him with cautious, hardened expressions. "Put your hands where I can see them," one of them ordered. "What? Wait, you think I did this?" "I was helping him." Jamal's voice cracked with disbelief, but no one was listening. They grabbed his wrists, twisting them behind his back, the cold metal of handcuffs clicking into place. "Are you serious?" "I didn't do anything," Jamal protested, panic rising in his throat as they pushed him toward a squad car. Sullivan approached the injured Officer Matthews, who was being loaded into the ambulance. "He attacked you, didn't he?" Sullivan asked, but Officer Matthews, still dazed, shook his head weakly. No, he helped me." "The kid helped," Matthews murmured, but Sullivan waved him off. "We'll sort it out later," Sullivan said, but Jamal knew, deep down, that this wasn't going to be sorted out easily. Hours later, Jamal found himself sitting in a cold interrogation room at the precinct, his wrists still aching from the cuffs. His mother, Michelle, sat beside him, her face a mixture of worry and anger. She had arrived the moment she got the call, demanding to know why her son, a well-behaved, honors student, was being treated like a criminal. "I've told you everything," Jamal said, his voice shaking slightly. "I saw the crash. I helped him. That's it." The detective across from him, a man named Parker, scribbled something in his notepad. "You expect me to believe that a kid like you just happened to be walking by when a cop crashed his car and decided to help him out of the goodness of your heart?" "Yes," Jamal snapped. "What else would I be doing?" Parker leaned back in his chair, staring at Jamal with cold, suspicious eyes. "We've got witnesses saying you were acting suspicious near the scene, and the officer's dashboard camera was destroyed in the crash, so we don't have any video evidence." "Witnesses? Who?" Jamal's heart pounded in his chest. There had been no one around. Who would say that? "We're still investigating," Parker said, standing up. "But for now, you're being charged with assaulting a police officer." "What?" Michelle stood, her voice filled with fury. "This is ridiculous. My son saved that man's life. You can't charge him with this." Parker gave a nonchalant shrug. "The courts will decide." The hours that followed were a blur. Jamal was processed, fingerprinted, and thrown into a holding cell. Every minute felt like an eternity. His mind raced with confusion and fear. He had only been trying to help, but now it felt like his life was spiraling out of control. He thought about school, his basketball team, his future, all slipping away because of this nightmare. When he was finally released on bail the next day, the weight of what was happening settled in. The local news had picked up the story. Black teen accused of attacking officer in crash. His face was plastered across TV screens and social media, strangers casting judgment before they knew anything. As days turned into weeks, Jamal's world became smaller. His classmates whispered behind his back. People he thought were friends distanced themselves. His basketball coach benched him until the situation was resolved. Even some of the teachers at school looked at him differently. Only a few stood by him, but even their support felt shaky under the pressure of public opinion. Jamal's lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Karen Hodge, believed in his innocence. "We'll fight this," she assured him and his mother during one of their many meetings. "We just need to get Officer Matthews on the stand. He's the key." But the trial dragged on, and the prosecution twisted every fact to fit their narrative. They painted Jamal as an angry teen with a chip on his shoulder, someone looking for trouble. The defense tried to push back, but it felt like an uphill battle. Finally, the day came when Officer Matthews took the stand. The courtroom was silent as he recounted the crash and how he had lost consciousness. "When I woke up, the kid was there," Matthews said, his voice quiet but steady. "I was disoriented, but he helped me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him." Jamal's heart raced as Matthews' words sunk in. Maybe this nightmare was finally ending. The prosecutor, however, wasn't ready to let go. "But isn't it possible, Officer Matthews, that in your state of confusion, you could have misinterpreted what really happened?" Matthews frowned. "No, I know what I saw. He didn't hurt me. He saved me." In the end, Matthews' testimony turned the tide. The jury deliberated for hours before finally returning with a verdict: not guilty. Jamal felt a wave of relief, but it was bittersweet. The damage had been done. He had been dragged through the mud, his reputation tarnished, his trust in the system shattered. As he and his mother left the courthouse, he looked back at the building, a grim reminder of how quickly life could change. "Let's go home," Michelle said, squeezing his hand. Jamal nodded, but as they walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that things would never quite be the same again. As Jamal and his mother walked out of the courthouse, the weight of everything that had happened still lingered. The city felt different, colder somehow. People passing by either stared at him too long or avoided eye contact altogether. He knew what they were thinking. The trial had been publicized all over, and even though he'd been declared not guilty, it didn't erase the headlines that had already labeled him a criminal. Life after the trial wasn't the same. At school, things were awkward. Some of his classmates still didn't know how to act around him. Teachers tried to pretend like nothing had happened, but Jamal could see the change in their behavior. The whispers hadn't completely stopped. Even walking through the hallways felt different. Eyes watching him, people judging silently. At basketball practice, his coach finally let him play again. But the energy wasn't the same. Jamal had always been the one people looked up to, the star player with college scouts already sending letters. But now, there was an invisible barrier between him and the team. They weren't sure how to talk to him. He wasn't sure how to talk to them. He felt like he'd become someone else, someone defined by something he didn't do. Weeks passed, and though the world around him seemed to move on, Jamal felt stuck. He tried to focus on basketball, on getting back into his rhythm, but it wasn't easy. At home, his mom was supportive, always there for him, but even she seemed worried, like she knew he was carrying something heavier than what anyone could see. One evening, after another long day of school, Jamal found himself sitting on the bleachers in the empty gym, staring at the basketball court. The sound of the ball bouncing echoed in his mind, but his hands were still. He hadn't picked up a ball in days, not like he used to. The court used to be his escape, his place to shut out everything else. Now it felt distant, like he couldn't find his way back to it. As he sat there, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw Coach Harris, hands in his pockets, walking toward him. Coach had been distant since the trial, like everyone else, but now there was something different in his expression. "Jamal," Coach said, his voice quiet but firm. You good? Jamal shrugged, staring down at the floor. I don't know. Doesn't feel like it. Coach sat down next to him, looking out at the empty court. You know, I've been coaching for a long time. Seen a lot of kids come through here. But you're different. You've always had something special, not just on the court, but in here, he said, tapping his chest. What happened to you? It wasn't fair. You didn't deserve any of it. Jamal felt a lump in his throat, the weight of everything pressing down on him. It doesn't matter. People still look at me like I did something wrong. Coach nodded slowly. That's because people are scared of what they don't understand. But you can't let them define you, Jamal. You can't let this be the thing that breaks you. Jamal stayed silent, not sure what to say. He wanted to believe Coach, but it was hard when everywhere he turned. It felt like the world saw him through a different lens. You're a fighter, Coach continued. You didn't quit when they came at you with those accusations. You stood your ground. That's not something everyone can do, especially at your age. You've got a future, Jamal. Don't let this take that from you. Jamal let out a slow breath. I don't even know what my future looks like anymore. Coach stood up, offering his hand. It's whatever you make it, but it starts with you getting back out there. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you quit. Jamal stared at Coach's hand for a moment before finally taking it. He stood up, feeling a small spark of that old determination come back. Maybe Coach was right. Maybe he couldn't change what people thought of him, but he could control how he responded to it. The next day, Jamal returned to practice with a new sense of purpose. The ball felt familiar in his hands again, and for the first time in weeks, he felt like himself. His teammates were hesitant at first, but as they played, the tension began to fade. The game flowed, and Jamal's skill shone through. He wasn't the kid on trial anymore. He was Jamal, the player they all knew, the one who led by example, the one who never gave up. But even as he found his rhythm again on the court, the outside world didn't forget. One afternoon, on his way home, Jamal stopped by a local convenience store to grab a snack. As he walked in, the store clerk, an older white man, watched him with narrowed eyes. Jamal tried to ignore it, but the unease settled in his gut. He grabbed a drink and some chips, heading to the counter. The man's gaze never left him. That it? The clerk asked, his tone flat, almost accusing. Jamal nodded, handing over the money. As he waited for his change, the man's eyes darted down to Jamal's backpack. You got anything else in there? The clerk asked, suspicion dripping from his voice. Jamal's chest tightened. No, he said, his voice tense. Mind opening it up for me? Jamal clenched his fists. I didn't steal anything. The man raised an eyebrow. Just being careful. You know how it is. Jamal knew exactly what the man meant. He could feel the judgment, the assumption that because of who he was, he had to be guilty of something. He slammed the money down on the counter, his patience gone. I'm not a thief. Without waiting for a response, he grabbed his things and stormed out of the store, the door slamming behind him. As he walked home, his heart pounded in his chest, anger and frustration boiling inside him. It didn't matter what he did, where he went, or how hard he tried to prove himself. The world had already made up its mind about him. That night, as he sat at his desk trying to focus on his homework, Jamal's phone buzzed. It was a message from his best friend, Tyler, who'd stuck by him through everything. Hey, you good? The message read. Jamal stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Yeah, just tired. You want to hang out this weekend? Get your mind off stuff? Jamal smiled faintly. Yeah, sounds good. As he set his phone down, he realized that no matter how tough things got, he wasn't alone. He had his mom, his friends, and even his coach, people who believed in him. Maybe the world wouldn't change overnight, but Jamal knew that he could still push forward. He had dreams, a future, and he wasn't about to let anyone or anything take that away from him. The weekend arrived, and Jamal met Tyler at the local park. The sun was shining brightly, and for the first time in a while, he felt a glimmer of hope. They played basketball together, their laughter echoing off the court as they shot hoops and practiced their moves. Tyler, always the jokester, kept the mood light, teasing Jamal about his old moves while encouraging him to get back to form. Come on, man. You're not some washed-up player just because of a little drama, Tyler said, making a ridiculous attempt to imitate Jamal's jump shot. Jamal chuckled, feeling the tension ease from his shoulders. You better watch out. I'll show you what I've got. As they played, Jamal realized how much he missed this, the camaraderie and the feeling of being free, even if just for a few hours. They played until the sun began to set, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink. Afterward, they collapsed on the grass, panting and exhausted. Dude, you're back. I swear you've gotten better, Tyler said, nudging Jamal with his elbow. Thanks, man. I needed this, Jamal replied, looking up at the sky. It feels good to just be normal again. Normal? You mean the normal where you save a cop's life and then get accused of attacking him? Tyler joked, trying to lighten the mood. Jamal chuckled, but his laughter quickly faded. Yeah, I guess that's my new normal. Look, forget what everyone else thinks. You know who you are, and so do I. Just keep doing your thing, and they'll see it too. Jamal nodded, appreciating his friend's unwavering support. The conversation shifted to plans for the upcoming school year, college applications, and basketball tryouts. As they talked, Jamal felt a sense of determination growing within him. He had dreams of playing basketball at a college level, of getting a scholarship, and now he realized he had to fight for it more than ever. That night, Jamal returned home feeling lighter. His mom was waiting in the kitchen, a warm plate of food set on the table. The smell of her famous chicken curry filled the air, and his stomach growled in response. "How was practice?" she asked, a smile lighting up her face as he sat down. "Good. I played with Tyler at the park. It felt really nice," he replied, digging into the food. Michelle watched him closely, her eyes reflecting both pride and concern. "I'm glad to hear that. You need to take care of yourself, Jamal. It's okay to lean on your friends." "I know, Mom. I'm trying," he said, swallowing a mouthful of curry. "But it's just hard sometimes. I don't want to be the kid everyone thinks I am because of what happened." She reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "You're not. You're so much more than this one incident. And you'll show everyone that, even if it takes time." Jamal smiled, grateful for her support. "Thanks, Mom. I'll keep pushing. I just want to get back to being me." In the days that followed, Jamal committed himself to basketball and his studies. He practiced relentlessly, pushing through the fatigue and frustration. He felt stronger physically and mentally, channeling his anger and confusion into every dribble, every shot. The court became a sanctuary, a place where he could lose himself and forget the noise of the outside world. However, the whispers still lingered. One afternoon after practice, Jamal overheard a couple of teammates talking in the locker room. "Did you see that video of him saving that cop? Crazy how things turned out," one said, his tone filled with disbelief. "Yeah, but you know how people are. They'll always see him as a suspect," another replied. Jamal clenched his jaw, hurt by their words but determined not to let it show. He dressed quickly, wanting to get out of there before he overheard anything else. As he walked to his car, he felt the weight of their judgments. They didn't know him. They didn't know what he had done or who he was. But deep down, Jamal knew he couldn't let their opinions shape him. In the coming weeks, the story of his trial began to fade from the headlines, but Jamal remained vigilant. He poured himself into basketball, aiming for a spot on the varsity team. He made a point to be visible, not just for himself but for anyone who felt judged or misunderstood. He volunteered to help coach younger kids at the park, sharing his love for the game and encouraging them to pursue their dreams. One Saturday, while coaching a group of 10-year-olds, he noticed a girl sitting alone on the sidelines. She was watching intently, her eyes following every move but never joining in. Jamal approached her, kneeling down to her level. "Hey, you want to come play with us?" he asked with a warm smile. She hesitated, biting her lip. "I don't know how," she admitted softly. "That's okay. We're just having fun. You can start with dribbling. Want me to show you?" Slowly, she nodded, a small smile breaking through her uncertainty. Jamal spent the next hour teaching her the basics, his heart swelling with pride as she gradually opened up and began to enjoy herself. By the end of the session, she was laughing, running around with the other kids. As they wrapped up, her mother approached him, tears in her eyes. Thank you. She's been struggling to fit in. You've given her a chance to smile today. Jamal felt a rush of warmth. I'm glad I could help. Everyone deserves a chance, right? Her mother nodded, gratitude shining in her expression. You're an inspiration. You know that? Jamal brushed off the compliment, but inside, he felt a sense of purpose. He wasn't just fighting for his own future. He was helping others find theirs too. As the summer days rolled into the school year, Jamal's reputation slowly began to shift. He found allies in unexpected places, teachers who saw his potential, teammates who recognized his talent, and friends who supported him unconditionally. The whispers had not entirely faded, but the narrative was changing. One day, during lunch, a group of classmates approached him. "Hey, Jamal," one said, nervously rubbing the back of his neck. "We wanted to say we're sorry. We didn't understand what you were going through, and we shouldn't have judged you." Jamal felt a mixture of surprise and relief wash over him. "Thanks. I appreciate that," he replied, trying to keep his tone steady. "Can we hang out sometime? We'd like to get to know you better," another classmate added. Jamal nodded, cautiously optimistic. "Sure, I'm around." As he sat back down, a wave of possibility washed over him. He realized that while some may never change their views, there were those willing to learn, to grow, and to stand with him. By the time basketball tryouts rolled around, Jamal felt ready. He poured everything he had into the drills, his movements sharp and confident. The gym was filled with the sound of sneakers squeaking against the hardwood and the echo of the ball bouncing. As he played, he could see the respect growing in his coach's eyes. Jamal was not just competing for a spot on the team. He was reclaiming his narrative, rewriting the story of who he was. When the final cuts were announced, Jamal held his breath, standing among his peers. He scanned the list, heart racing until he finally saw his name. A wave of relief washed over him, and he couldn't help but smile, pride swelling in his chest. "Welcome to the team, Jamal," Coach Harris called out, and a few of his teammates cheered. That night, as he lay in bed, Jamal reflected on how far he had come. He was still battling against prejudices, still fighting to define himself in a world that often tried to put him in a box, but he had allies now. He had support, and most importantly, he had found his voice. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to face whatever came next. He understood that his journey was far from over. The fight for justice and understanding was ongoing. But now, he was not just a victim of circumstance. He was a beacon of hope for others, someone who would stand up for what was right and encourage those around him to do the same. And that realization filled him with an unwavering strength. As the weeks rolled on, Jamal settled into his routine as a member of the basketball team. Every practice felt like a triumph, a way to channel his energy and emotions into something constructive. He practiced with a fierce determination, pushing himself to improve, and each drill brought him closer to the goal he had set for himself. Not just to play, but to excel and prove everyone wrong. One afternoon, as the team wrapped up practice, Coach Harris called them in for a meeting. "I know you guys have been working hard, but I want to talk about something important," he began, his voice serious. "We have a tournament coming up next month. It's a big deal, and I want us to put our best foot forward." The room buzzed with excitement and nervous energy. Jamal exchanged glances with his teammates, feeling a sense of camaraderie growing among them. "We'll need to be focused, disciplined, and ready to support one another," Coach Harris continued. "I want to emphasize teamwork. This isn't just about individual talent. It's about how we come together as a unit." As Coach outlined the practice schedule leading up to the tournament, Jamal felt a rush of adrenaline. He could already imagine himself making the winning shot, leading his team to victory. But in the back of his mind, he knew that the shadows of his past were never far away. After the meeting, Jamal caught up with Tyler. "Are you coming to the tournament?" he asked, his eyes bright with excitement. "Of course. I wouldn't miss it for the world. You're going to shine out there," Tyler replied, giving him a supportive pat on the back. "I hope so. I really want to show everyone that I'm more than what they think I am." "You're doing that already, man. Just keep being you," Tyler reassured him, and Jamal felt a surge of gratitude for his friend's unwavering support. As the tournament approached, The team practiced relentlessly. They ran drills, scrimmaged against each other, and worked on their plays, all while building the kind of chemistry that would be crucial on game day. Jamal thrived in the intense atmosphere, embracing the challenge. But beneath the excitement lay the weight of anticipation. The fear of judgment still loomed large, a specter that threatened to overshadow his progress. On the day of the tournament, the gym was packed with families, friends, and students. The air buzzed with excitement, and the smell of popcorn filled the atmosphere. Jamal's heart raced as he watched his teammates warm up on the court, their energy infectious. He donned his jersey, the fabric heavy with significance. It represented not just his team but the battles he had fought and the ones still ahead. As the first game began, Jamal felt a rush of adrenaline as he stepped onto the court. The crowd roared, and for a moment, he felt invincible. The game started strong, his team playing cohesively, and Jamal quickly found his rhythm. He made quick passes, set up plays, and scored a couple of early baskets. However, as the game progressed, Jamal noticed a group of students from his school sitting in the stands. They were whispering and pointing, their faces filled with expressions that sent a chill down his spine. The anxiety he had tried so hard to suppress began to creep back in. In the midst of a play, he lost focus, missing an easy layup. The ball clanged off the rim, and the opposing team capitalized on his mistake, running down the court for an easy basket. Jamal felt frustration bubble up inside him, and he quickly shook his head, forcing himself to breathe. "Focus, Jamal. You've got this," Tyler shouted from the sidelines, his voice cutting through the noise. Jamal took a moment to regroup, reminding himself of Coach Harris's words about teamwork. He needed to trust his teammates and play for them. With renewed determination, he rallied and returned to the game with a vengeance. He began to make plays, assisting his teammates and driving towards the basket with fierce determination. Each successful shot brought the crowd to its feet, and he could feel the energy shifting. The negative whispers faded as cheers erupted from the stands. Jamal found a rhythm, scoring basket after basket, leading his team to a hard-fought victory in their first game. As they celebrated, Jamal was enveloped in a sense of pride and joy. He had stepped onto the court not just as a player, but as someone reclaiming his narrative, showing that he could rise above the challenges thrown his way. The next game loomed ahead, and as they prepared, the energy was electric. They faced tougher opponents, but Jamal was ready. The feeling of being part of something bigger propelled him forward. As the games progressed, they moved closer to the finals, each victory a step toward proving themselves as a formidable team. However, as the tournament continued, Jamal's past began to resurface in unexpected ways. The media coverage of the tournament brought unwanted attention. Reporters began to inquire about Jamal's story, wanting to know more about the incident with the cop and how it shaped him as a player. Jamal found himself answering questions he wasn't sure he was ready to confront, explaining the complexities of his situation while trying to focus on the games. During one interview, a reporter pressed him, "How do you feel about being labeled a suspect in that incident? Do you think it's affected your performance?" Jamal took a deep breath, his heart racing. "I think it's important for people to see beyond a single moment," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "We all have stories that shape us, but they don't define us. I'm here to play basketball, to show that I'm more than a headline." The reporter nodded, seemingly satisfied, but Jamal felt the weight of the moment. His words hung in the air, a reminder that while he was fighting to carve out a new identity, the past still clung to him like a shadow. As the finals approached, the tension built. The gym was packed, a mix of students, parents, and community members buzzing with excitement. Jamal could feel the weight of their expectations on his shoulders, but this time he was determined to rise to the occasion. The game was intense from the tip-off. Jamal played with all his heart, pushing through fatigue and pressure. The score fluctuated, and both teams battled fiercely. With just seconds left in the game, they found themselves down by 2 points. The crowd roared, and Jamal felt his pulse quicken. "Let's go. One last play," Coach Harris shouted from the sidelines. They quickly set up their final strategy. Jamal positioned himself on the perimeter, ready for the ball. As the clock ticked down, his teammate drove to the basket, drawing defenders. In that moment, Jamal spotted his opening. "Over here!" he yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. The ball flew through the air, and in one smooth motion, Jamal caught it, took a breath, and let it fly. The ball soared, spinning perfectly, and time seemed to freeze as everyone watched its trajectory. Swish! The net rippled, and the crowd erupted into cheers, their voices shaking the walls of the gym. Jamal felt a rush of exhilaration, adrenaline coursing through him as his teammates swarmed him, lifting him off the ground in celebration. In that moment, he knew he had done more than just win a game. He had transformed from a boy carrying the weight of prejudice into a young man who could rise above it, a beacon of hope and resilience. As they held the trophy high, Jamal looked around at the cheering crowd, feeling gratitude for the support he had received from his friends, family, and teammates. But he also knew this was just the beginning. He would continue to fight not only for himself, but for others who faced the same challenges. After the tournament, Jamal became a mentor for younger players, sharing not just basketball skills, but also the lessons he had learned about resilience and determination. He spoke at local schools, encouraging students to stand up for themselves and not let societal labels define who they were. The journey was far from over, but Jamal had discovered his purpose. He would not only be a basketball player, he would be a voice for change, advocating for those who felt marginalized. The narrative was shifting, and Jamal was determined to ensure it continued to evolve. And as he looked ahead, he knew that whatever challenges lay in wait, he would face them head-on, ready to prove that true strength comes not from the struggles we face, but from how we choose to rise above them. As Jamal settled into his role as a mentor, he became a fixture at the local community center, where kids gathered after school to play basketball and hang out. The gym became a safe haven, a place where he could share his story and inspire the next generation. He organized training sessions, not just focusing on basketball skills, but also emphasizing teamwork, respect, and resilience. One afternoon, as Jamal was running a practice session for a group of young players, he noticed a shy boy named Malik hanging back, watching from the sidelines. Malik was about 12 years old, small for his age, and seemed hesitant to join in. Jamal remembered feeling that way when he first stepped onto the court, unsure and anxious. He approached Malik with a warm smile. "Hey there, why aren't you playing?" Jamal asked, kneeling down to Malik's level. "I don't know if I'm good enough," Malik mumbled, his eyes downcast. "Everyone starts somewhere," Jamal replied, his voice encouraging. "Why don't you come try? You might surprise yourself." After a moment's hesitation, Malik nodded and stepped onto the court. Jamal guided him through some basic drills, praising his effort and showing him techniques to improve. Malik's confidence began to grow, and soon he was laughing and competing with the other kids. Jamal couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as he watched Malik transform from a timid spectator into an enthusiastic participant. Over the following weeks, Malik became a regular at the community center. He idolized Jamal, often shadowing him during practices and asking questions about basketball and life. Jamal took him under his wing, sharing stories of his own struggles and triumphs, making sure Malik understood that hard work and perseverance were key to success. Meanwhile, Jamal continued to navigate the complexities of his own life. He faced scrutiny from some community members who were still hesitant to embrace him fully. Despite the tournament victory, there were whispers, lingering doubts fueled by the incident with the cop. It weighed on him, but he was determined not to let it dim his light. One evening, while finishing up a practice, Jamal received a call from Tyler. "Hey man, there's going to be a community event this weekend. They're highlighting stories of local heroes, and I thought you'd be perfect for it." "What do you mean?" Jamal asked, intrigued. "Think about it. You've come through a lot this past year. Your story could inspire so many people," Tyler explained. "You should definitely share it." Jamal felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Speaking publicly was daunting, but he knew it was an opportunity to share his journey, to connect with others, and to advocate for those who felt unheard. After a moment of consideration, he agreed. "Okay, I'm in." As the event approached, Jamal prepared his speech with the help of Tyler and Coach Harris. He wanted to ensure that his message was clear, that everyone deserves to be seen beyond their circumstances, and that resilience can lead to triumph, no matter the obstacles. On the day of the event, The community center was packed. Families, friends, and neighbors gathered to hear the stories of those who had overcome challenges. Jamal's heart raced as he took the stage, the spotlight illuminating him under the bright lights. He looked out at the audience, spotting Malik in the front row, his eyes wide with admiration. "Hello, everyone," Jamal began, his voice steady despite the nerves. "My name is Jamal, and I want to share my story. A year ago, I faced a situation that shook my world. I was labeled a suspect after helping a police officer in need, and that label followed me. I struggled with anger, fear, and doubt, but I learned that we are all more than the labels society gives us." He spoke passionately, recounting the challenges he had faced and the lessons he had learned along the way. He emphasized the importance of community, support, and standing up for one another. As he shared his journey from being an outsider to finding his place, he could see the audience resonating with his words. "I want to remind you all that your past doesn't define your future. It's how we rise after the fall that truly matters," he concluded, his heart swelling with emotion. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jamal felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had shared his truth, and in doing so, he had forged a deeper connection with his community. After the event, people approached him with words of encouragement and gratitude. Malik beamed up at him, his pride evident. "You were amazing, Jamal. I want to be like you when I grow up." Jamal knelt down to Malik's level again, feeling a warmth in his chest. "You can be even better, Malik. Just remember to always believe in yourself." As the weeks went by, Jamal continued to inspire and mentor Malik and the other kids at the community center. He organized mini tournaments and workshops, emphasizing not just basketball skills but also building character and resilience. He created an environment where kids could learn to support each other, fostering a sense of belonging. But as Jamal thrived, he learned that challenges never truly disappear. One day, he received a notification about a community meeting focused on police relations and community engagement. The meeting was being organized by a local advocacy group, and they invited Jamal to speak. The idea made him uneasy. The memories of his past encounter with the police were still fresh. However, as he weighed the decision, he realized this could be another opportunity to advocate for change, to use his voice for those who felt powerless. He felt a responsibility to contribute to the dialogue, to help bridge the gap between the community and law enforcement. When the day of the meeting arrived, Jamal walked into the packed hall, his heart pounding. He was joined by community leaders and police representatives, and as he took the stage, he could feel the weight of expectation resting on his shoulders. "Thank you all for coming," he began, looking out at the audience. "I'm here because I believe we can create a better relationship between our community and the police. We need to talk about the issues, listen to each other, and work together to build trust." Jamal shared his personal experience, recounting the day he helped the injured officer and the fallout that followed. He spoke candidly about the fear and misunderstanding that often existed on both sides. "We are all human, and we all have our stories. Let's take the time to understand each other," he urged, his voice filled with passion. The discussion that followed was intense and emotional. Community members voiced their concerns, and police officers shared their perspectives. Jamal facilitated the conversation, encouraging empathy and understanding from both sides. By the end of the meeting, the atmosphere had shifted. There was a newfound sense of hope and willingness to change. People were exchanging contact information, and plans were being made for community workshops to foster better relationships. Jamal felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had taken a step toward healing, not just for himself but for his community. As Jamal continued to grow in his role as a mentor and advocate, he found solace in the impact he was making. He knew the road ahead would not be easy, but he was prepared to face whatever challenges came his way. With every drill he ran, every kid he inspired, and every conversation he facilitated, he was not only redefining his own narrative, but also empowering others to do the same. In the quiet moments after a long day, Jamal would often reflect on how far he had come. He remembered the boy who felt powerless and alone, battling against stereotypes and societal expectations. Now, he was a young man who had found his voice, determined to uplift others in their struggles. One evening, as he watched Malik and the other kids play a friendly game of basketball, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The laughter, the camaraderie, and the sense of belonging filled the air, and Jamal knew that he had created a safe space for them to thrive. "Hey, Malik, you got this?" he cheered, watching as Malik dribbled the ball, his newfound confidence shining bright. In that moment, Jamal realized that his journey had come full circle. He was no longer just fighting against a label. He was building a legacy of resilience, hope, and empowerment that would inspire generations to come. And as he stood there, surrounded by the laughter and energy of the kids, he felt a profound sense of purpose ignite within him. This was just the beginning. As Jamal continued to mentor the youth at the community center, he noticed the positive ripple effect of his efforts. Kids who once struggled with their self-esteem began to flourish, their spirits lifted by the camaraderie and support they found in their shared experiences. Malik, once shy and unsure, became a leader on the court, encouraging his peers and helping newcomers feel welcome. One afternoon, as they wrapped up a basketball practice, Jamal gathered everyone in a circle. "You all have come so far, and I'm proud of each of you," he said, looking at their eager faces. "But remember, it's not just about basketball. It's about being good people and lifting each other up, on and off the court." As the weeks turned into months, the community center became a hub of hope and inspiration. Jamal organized events that brought together families from different backgrounds, fostering understanding and connection. Through basketball tournaments, art shows, and community dinners, people began to see one another as individuals rather than stereotypes. But challenges still lingered. During one community meeting, a heated discussion arose about recent incidents involving police. A voice in the crowd spoke out, filled with frustration. "We need more than just words. We need real change." The atmosphere grew tense as emotions ran high. Jamal stepped forward, remembering his own struggles. "I hear you. Change is hard, but it starts with us," he said, addressing the crowd. "We can't be afraid to have these tough conversations. Let's create a platform where we can share our stories and work towards understanding." His words resonated, and the discussion shifted to how they could build bridges between law enforcement and the community. Jamal proposed a series of workshops where community members and police could share their experiences and work together to find solutions. The crowd began to see the potential for unity rather than division. As the workshops took shape, Jamal's heart swelled with hope. He watched as officers and residents sat together, sharing meals and stories, slowly breaking down barriers that had existed for far too long. Malik attended these workshops, eager to learn and participate. He often stood beside Jamal, listening intently and absorbing the lessons of empathy and collaboration. One day, during a particularly impactful workshop, an officer shared a personal story about growing up in a tough neighborhood. "I didn't always understand the struggles of my community until I listened," he admitted. "It's about finding common ground and realizing we're all in this together." As the sessions continued, the group began to see real change. They discussed initiatives to improve community safety, support for local youth programs, and ways to encourage positive interactions between police and residents. People felt empowered, realizing they had a voice and that their experiences mattered. Jamal's influence was evident as he encouraged everyone to embrace their stories, teaching them that vulnerability could foster strength and connection. Through his journey, he had come to understand that change wasn't just about confronting injustice. It was also about building relationships based on trust and mutual respect. As summer approached, the community center hosted a large festival to celebrate their progress. Families came together for food, music, and games. Jamal watched with pride as he saw the kids playing together, their laughter ringing through the air. The event showcased the vibrant tapestry of their community, diverse, dynamic, and united. During the festival, Malik stood up to share his own story. "I used to be scared to play basketball because I didn't think I was good enough. But Jamal showed me that we can all be great, and that together, we can lift each other up." The crowd erupted in applause, and Jamal felt a profound sense of fulfillment. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the festival, Jamal gathered everyone for a closing speech. "Today, we celebrate not just our successes but the journey we've taken together. Each one of you has a voice, and together, we can create the change we want to see." Let's continue to lift each other up and make our community stronger. With tears of joy in his eyes, he looked around at the faces beaming with hope and gratitude. Remember, kindness and understanding are powerful tools. They can break down walls and build bridges. Let's keep sharing our stories and supporting one another because that is how we truly thrive. As the crowd cheered, Jamal realized that his journey had come full circle. He had transformed not only his own narrative, but also that of his community. Together, they had turned adversity into strength, proving that unity, empathy, and resilience could conquer even the deepest divides. In the end, Jamal knew that the moral of his story was clear. We are all woven from the same fabric of humanity. By sharing our experiences and embracing our differences, we can create a future filled with hope, understanding, and love.